Alright, so we've blocked out the base barrel itself, and now we need to work on the secondary portion on that. So to get started with this, let's go ahead and go to our left view, hitting L on the keyboard. And let's go to Edge Mode, go to Edit and Swift Loop. Let's go ahead and add a loop right here, okay, right at the edge there. And let's actually make sure that we make that loop on the outside of the barrel. Seeing how this is a tube, you could possibly make a loop on the inside. So let's go ahead and add it again right here. And then we're going to take the polygons on the bottom. I just want the bottom 4 here, so just these. And we're going to extrude those. So go ahead and extrude that. 1 is fine. And then we want to go ahead and make that planar in the Y direction, so it's flat on the bottom. Let's go ahead and go back to our left view, hitting L on the keyboard. I'm going to drag that all the way down to the reference image there. And then go ahead and grab vertex mode, hitting 1 on the keyboard, and select around this corner. Move that over in the X till that matches up with the reference image. Alright, great. So now we have that set there. Now what we want to do is we want to start adding in some of the detail. So right up here where the barrel and that piece actually meet, there's a little bit of a curve inside of that. And so we want to make sure that we add that in. And so let's go ahead and add a loop. I'm going to go ahead and just add it right about here or so. It might even be better if we go to our left view and then hit Alt-X so we can see that. And then we can go ahead and just add that a little bit easier. Now with that cut, let's go ahead and go to Edge Mode. That should have that edge still selected. Let's go ahead and set that and make that planar in the Y direction. Now before we do it, let's make sure that we set our constraints to edge, so that way we're not changing the topology too much. So let's set that to Y. That should straighten that up, and then we'll go ahead and just put that into position. Perfect. Alright, one last thing that we want to do at this point is go ahead and create the curvature or the topology we need for this piece here. So what we can do is go ahead and make another loop, and we'll go ahead and we'll add one right across the top of that, and then also right at the bottom. Perfect. Actually, let's do one more. Let's put one right in the center between that. Okay, and there we go. So now we need to create one more edge, and that's going to be right about here. But you'll notice that it's kind of off at a weird angle, and it doesn't give me exactly what I want. So I'm going to get close, and then what we'll do is go ahead and just make planar in the X. Oops, let's try the Z direction. There we go. And let's put it right here. Okay. So now what we can do is we can take this vertex right here and we just pull that over. And then we could just take these polygons right here, and we could just extrude those into the side here. So hit Alt-X, and let's isolate this object. And let's simply take these polygons right here, and let's delete them out. So I'm just going to hit Delete, and then, actually, you know, let's go ahead and just delete them out. And then I'm going to go to Edge Mode and select just these edges right here. And I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to extrude that backward. Now, we need to make sure that we turn off Edge Constraint. So set that to none, hold Shift, move that back in the X, get it pretty close to that corner right there, because what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and weld that back. Okay, make this all part of one piece of geometry. Perfect. Okay, so now with this, let's go ahead and go to vertex mode. Let's select around those vertices, and let's weld. Okay, we should see vertex 131, select around that, 2 vertices selected, weld, and that has been welded properly. Great. Now let's go to edge mode, and what we want to do is we want to go ahead and create the edges in between this. Now we could go ahead and just cap it, which might be a good idea. Go ahead and go to border mode, select that border, and then cap, and go to vertex mode, select this edge, or that vertex and this one, and connect. And then we're going to go ahead and right click and cut from this vertex down to this vertex. Now you may have some issues with that, so let's try it one more time. Let's try to get a better angle on it. and still not wanting to cut right. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll cut from the center line down, and then we'll cut from the center line again up. Sometimes you'll have to do it that way. Just happens that way sometimes. Okay, so now we've got most of our shape finished up here. We've got all that set. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what this is going to look like with everything else. So turn off isolate mode, and let's go ahead and go to the right view. Looking pretty good so far. Let's go to the left view. Okay, so far so good. All right, now let's go ahead and get the sight on the front. This one's going to be pretty easy to do. All we need to do is just simply select the polygons on that and then extrude those up. Now before we do that, let's take a look at how this is made. You'll see that that is actually pulled back a little bit further. And what we want to do is go ahead and grab those vertices and just pull those back here, just like that. And I'm going to add in one more loop right here on the edge, on the end of this, so that way we can get a nice little bit of curvature right off the end of that. And it still leaves this area alone. Now with those vertices selected, let's go ahead and make planar in the X direction. Okay, oops, let's try the Z direction. There we go. All right, good. So now let's go ahead and go to polygon mode. Select just the two polys. We're not going to worry about the ones on the end there. And then we'll extrude that up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make that planar in the Y direction, so it's flat. And then we're going to go back to our left view or right view, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to pull that down right here. Then I'm going to scale that in the X using the scale tool. And then we'll scale that in on the X direction here, just to kind of thin that up a little bit. Perfect. Let's add one loop on the center of that. And then we'll cut that, and we're going to select that edge. And let's go ahead and turn on edge constraint. Let's set that to make planar in the Y direction. Turn off edge constraint now. And then in our left view or right view, we're going to go ahead and scale that in just like so. So that way we get a little bit of a curvature there, and that's being built in. Okay. And then you can also scale that in on the X as well. So it should look something kind of like that. Then one more thing, let's go ahead and take those two polygons, let's inset those, and let's do something like 0.1, and then we'll just simply extrude that. Okay, so let's go ahead and extrude it, and we'll extrude it up by 1 just for right now. Go ahead and go to your left view, grab your move tool and pull that down. Put it to right at the top there, and grab your vertex mode, hitting 1, scale that in. Okay. And we'll scale it to right about here, and then I'm going to add a segment right down the center. So go to edge mode, hitting 2 on the keyboard, select 1 and hit ring, and then let's connect it with a single segment for right now, and we'll leave it at 0, 0, and then we're going to take those two outside vertices and we're just going to move that down. Okay, let's take all of this right here, and let's just move that forward a little bit. Just try to match that up a little bit better. And actually, let's take all of these vertices, basically everything that's there, forward. I'm not going to worry about these polygons here. Those are okay. Just pull that forward a little bit more. Try to get that centered a little bit better. Okay, so there we go. Now we have that ready to go, and now we need to just smooth it out. Before we do that, there's just a little bit more that we need to take care of, and that's going to be these polygons right here. Those need to be pushed in a little bit, so we're going to do it just like we did right here. So we can add just a single loop right in the center of that. Okay, let's try it one more time. Let's add that right there. There we go. Take those edges right here, and let's just push that in the X direction. It's going to look something kind of like that. Let's actually do that on both sides, because I believe that gets pushed in both sides there. And you know what? Let me actually select that entire loop. Let's make that planar in the Y with edge constraint turned on. And then let's scale that. Let's convert our edge selection to vertex. Scale that in the X so it looks something like that. But before we do it, let's make sure we turn off edge constraint. Now let's push that in. There we go. Alright, so now let's go ahead and take a look at it with Turbo Smooth on. And we'll bump that up maybe 2 or 3. Turn on Isoline Display. And you can see again it gets very mushy. But we know that we have to add in some control loops to